All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm flying the TorqueSim SR22 in X-Plane once again. For those of you who haven't watched my tutorial beginners video, this is going to be a little bit more advanced than that. This is going to be a more advanced flight. We're going to be going from Grand Junction to Aspen, Colorado in the SR22. This is going to really test the SR22's capabilities in mountainous terrain with oxygen, anti-ice. We may even need to fly an approach. I'll be doing this on pilot edge and demonstrating some of the more advanced capabilities of the SR22. So let's get started. So we're going to be doing our flight planning first and foremost. So as you can see, we're parked here at Grand Junction, and I've planned the Junction 7 departure with a visual approach into Aspen. I have the Roaring Fork visual plugged in, but I'm expecting maybe just to do a visual approach following the Roaring Fork River here. Because of the terrain between Grand Junction and Aspen, we're going to be needing to do a ridge of peak climb, a full ridge climb. So we'll be leaving the mixture fully rich until we get to our cruising altitude of 15,000 feet. This, of course, is going to cost us a little extra fuel, so we'll have to incorporate that into our flight planning. So if we go to the flights page, you can see I've set up a flight from Grand Junction to Aspen with Eagle County as my alternate. And for the performance profile, we have all these different power settings, but they all assume a lean of peak climb, as you can see. So because of that, we're going to have to be doing some calculations manually using the Tornado Alley Turbo Supplement to determine how much extra gas we need to carry for the ridge of peak climb. So under Documents, I've got the supplement, and if I kind of scrub through it, we can go to the performance section, and here the time, fuel, and distance to climb. We'll take a look at what it costs us in fuel to do the lean of peak climb and the ridge of peak and the full ridge climb, and then we'll know how much extra fuel it's going to cost us to do the full ridge climb. So Grand Junction's at 5,000 feet, and our cruising altitude is 15,000 feet. So if we look at the 5,000 feet column, that's 2.1 gallons. That's our baseline. Go to the 15,000 feet column, that's 7.1 gallons. That means it's going to take us 5 gallons lean of peak to go from 5 to 15,000. Now we head on over to the ridge of peak climb technique, which as you can see is full ridge, 35 gallons an hour. 5,000 feet, the baseline is 2.7. Go on down to 15,000 feet, that's 9.6. So 9.6 minus 2.7 is 6.9. And we subtract the 5 gallons per hour, or the 5 gallons that it would have taken us to do the lean of peak climb. And that shows that it's about an extra 2 gallons. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't. 2 gallons here or there is not a big deal in your flight planning, but it's important to note it and be specific in these things, because for a longer climb, it may be more fuel required. And also, that 2 gallons maybe could make the difference from having to divert because of IFR minimums or being able to make it to your home airport. So when we go back to the flights page, you can see for the lean of peak climb, it calculated total a minimum of 33 gallons of fuel required. So we'll stick in 35, and that should cover our full rich climb. Some other things we're going to be covering are the oxygen system using the TKS anti-ice system and engine cooling as well, because it's a reasonably warm day here. It's 80 degrees at Grand Junction. So as always, battery 2 first, wait for the PFD to come on, verify that the flap light is out. All right, very good. Check our battery and essential bus, and then battery 1. Verify these numbers change how we would expect. Flap light is on, and the MFD comes on. All right, everything's up to date. We've done our know your limits checks. Initially usable fuel, we're going to stick in 35. So 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minus 3 is 32. And that should give us 35 gallons total. All right, with that done, let's acknowledge the warning and caution. Since it's a fairly warm day, we won't prime it for very long, just a touch of high boost. Then we'll crack the throttle. put it to low boost, and stick the keys in the ignition, on the brakes, and start. Engine comes up, RPM comes up, oil pressure comes up, and the alternator, we have alternator load, and the battery's charging, avionics, strobe light. All right, let's go to the checklist page now, and we can skip all this other stuff. I started up the engine from memory, so we'll go straight to the before taxi checklist. But before we do that checklist, let's get our clearance and let's get the ATIS. So, looking down at the iPad, ATIS is 1855. So let's plug that in. And I know you can use the keyboard, the GDU, to set frequencies, but that does not work for me. Unfortunately, it just seems to have some weird bug. So, I'm not doing that.
Grand Junction Regional Airport. ATIS information Juliet. 1653 Zulu. Wind variable at 3. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 26. Dew point 12. Altimeter 3016. Arriving and parting runways 22, 29R. Visual approaches in use. Read back all runway assignments and hold short instructions. Advise on initial contact. You have information Juliet. Grand Junction Regional Airport. ATIS information Juliet.
Let's go to ground now.
1653 Zulu.
121.7.
Wind variable at 3. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear.
Okay, so you might have heard I reduced the throttle. So as the engine heats up, the RPM is going to creep up. It's important to reduce power and try to maintain it at 1,000 RPM. And also, I didn't say it, but I did it. I also brutally leaned the mixture down to the T. Grand Junction ground. Cirrus November 171 Mike Alpha with Juliet ready to copy.
Number 171 Mike Alpha, Grand Junction grounds clear to Aspen Airport. Grand Junction 7 departure. Paces transition. Victor 134. Red table VOR. Direct. Climb V SID. Accept maintain 14,000. Expect 15,000 within 5 minutes of departure. Denver departure frequency 119.7. Squawk 6267.
171 Mike Alpha cleared to Aspen via Junction 7, Paces, Victor 134, Red Table, direct. Climb via the SID, accept maintain 14,000, expect 15,005, frequency 119.7, squawk 6267. So we've got a different route than what we filed, so we're going to have to, first of all, update the procedure, which is now to the Paces transition, and then we can replace this with Victor 134 to Red Table, and then from there direct. And so on the map it looks almost exactly the same, but the routing is just different procedurally. And so we'll be plugging that in and reviewing the departure in just a bit here. But first, let's get ready to taxi. So first of all, let's go to the map page and zoom in so we can get that safe taxi view. There we go. And
Boeing Tower, Aero,
get the checklist back up.
37 Tango Echo is at Alpha 4, request taxi back to runway 14 left.
Let's get the taxi diagram up.
Tango Echo, stay on my frequency, runway 14 left.
And since wind was variable at 3, I assume we're going to get runway
29. Left taxi via Alpha
so
on your frequency.
Taxi straight ahead to
Tango Echo.
Alpha, but let's get our clearance and figure it out. Grand Junction ground, 171 Mike Alpha, we're ready to taxi with Juliet. And we're at West Star. And let me set my transponder.
November 171 Mike Alpha, Grand Junction ground runway 29er, taxi via Alpha, hold short runway 22.
29er via Alpha, hold short 22, 171 Mike Alpha. Okay, so as expected, it's via Alpha, hold short at 22. We'll do the before taxi checklist. Flaps are up, radio and avionics are set, cabin heat defrost. It's pretty warm out, so I'm just going to set this to cool and turn on the fan. Fuel selector, we'll switch tanks now and verify fuel flow.
1580 Oakland Center, afternoon boss. Descend via
for the taxi checklist, let's
arrival,
remove the
Reno
parking brake.
is
do a
3012.
brake check, and then let's taxi straight ahead onto Alpha.
Clear for takeoff, runway
As we
14
turn,
left,
we'll verify
left
the
traffic,
HSI, the turn
midfield,
rate indicator, the
37 Tango
turn
Echo.
coordinator, and the standby compass. Standby compass is having a hard time, but it's turning the right direction. We're going to hold short now. We did check our instruments in the turn, so we'll acknowledge all those. Let's do the before takeoff checks. Doors are closed. Caps handle, we'll remove the cover and pin. Seat belts and harnesses, air conditioner, fuel quantity, fuel selector, move it back to the fullest tank. Check pressure. Fuel pump is still in low boost. Mixture will leave leaned. Flaps to 50%. Verify they come down on both sides. And verify the lights on. Transponder, we gotta set it. Squawk is 6267.
Going tower, Aero 37 Tango Echo is midpoint downwind for runway 14 left.
Alright.
Number 7 Tango Echo, runway 14 left, clear to land.
Autopilot,
Wind
we're going to skip the
2306.
test for the reasons that I explained in the last video.
Wind 2306,
Navigation
clear to
radios
land.
will set now.
14 left, Aero 37 Tango Echo.
So let's delete the existing flight plan and set up one from Grand Junction via the Junction 7 departure to Paces. It's runway 29. Paces. And then from there, Victor, oops, let's get it in the right place. From there, Victor 134 to Red Table, and then from there to Aspen. All right, the route's set, and if we go to the cumulative view, just verify that the cumulative distance isn't crazy, so we didn't get any fixes wrong. Continuing with the checklist, cavity defrost, brakes hold, power levers 1700. And then alternator, we'll turn on the landing light, pitot heat, verify that the battery, the essential bus is still producing 28 volts, the battery's not discharging. And then we'll turn off the pitot heat, do a quick mag check here. All right. Power levels, all instruments are in the green. Back to 1000. Flight instruments, we'll check airspeed versus airspeed, attitude versus attitude.
Reading ground, Skyhawk November 6294, Mike at the Reading Jet Center for touch and goes with information Yankee.
All right, 3016, and we're showing 4800, 4800. That's close enough to field elevation. So that's, and compass versus compass. Flight controls.
Number 6294, Mike, Reading ground. Say again your position.
Trim for takeoff.
Sir, I'm at the Reading Jet Center, the FBO.
And autopilot will
Number
configure.
62.
So Grand Junction 7 departure for runway 29, climb heading
Taxi
292.
runway 16,
So
we
we'll
have
set that.
Bravo Delta, cross 12 for 16.
292 until 6000, then climbing right, turn direct to Junction VOR. And we were told to climb and maintain via the SIG, climb via the SIG to 14,000. So we'll plug that into the altitude select window. And we'll set the flight director in heading mode and IAS mode with a climb speed of 130 knots because it's a pretty warm day. So we'll probably need the extra cooling of 130 knot climb. All right. So let's have the plate up. So we got a climbing right turn to 6,000. sorry, we got to climb on 292 to 6,000, then a climbing left turn direct to Grand Junction. Now to get some situational awareness for Grand Junction, I'm actually going to tune it into the nav radio to nav 1, and we'll set it to 112.4.
Number 7 Tango Echo, say request.
Make it active. And then on the
Arrow
PFD, we'll
37
show
Tango
bearing
Echo
1,
is on
nav
Alpha
1,
3,
and then
request
that way we
expect
know
runway
the
14
direction
left.
to Junction VOR at all
Number
times.
37
That'll be
Tango Echo,
helpful
runway 14
situational
left,
awareness.
taxi Alpha, this frequency.
And now let's do the
14 left,
departure
taxi
brief.
Alpha on your frequency, 37 Tango Echo.
So this is a complex flight, so we're going to brief it carefully. All right, so for the departure, it's going to be runway 29. We're going to be climbing via the Grand Junction 7 departure. Emergency procedures are going to be per my personal SOP. If we get red manifold pressure, red fuel flow, we'll continue the takeoff and reduce power after takeoff. Anything else will abort. Any yellows will continue the takeoff. Rotation is going to be at 70 knots. We're going to climb at 130 knots. Field elevation is 4,800 feet, so it's going to be flaps up at 5,000. Caps is available at 5,600 feet. We're going to be using oxygen above 10,000 feet, and we'll be using TKS as required in the clouds. Autopilot will be turned on once we're established in the climb. Flight director is set in heading mode. Nav mode is not armed. We'll arm it after takeoff. We got flight level change selected with altitude select armed at 14,000 feet. Threats. Major threat is the high density altitude and the mountainous terrain, so we'll be watching our climb rate. We'll be using a full rich climb. Other threats are this is an unfamiliar and complex approach, so we'll be checking ourselves at every step of the approach and verifying that we're on course. All right, that's our departure brief. We're now ready to go. So let's put away, well, so first of all, let's get the climb checklist ready.
Boeing Tower, Arrow 37 Tango Echo, holding short runway 14 left.
Let's put away the
takeoff
checklist,
remaining in the
and
pattern.
we're ready to go. So let's switch over to tower
37 Tango
and get
Echo,
our
runway
departure
14 left,
frequency ready.
takeoff, make left traffic.
And departure, we were given 119.7. All right. Grand Junction Tower 171 Mike Alpha, holding short of runway 22, ready for departure.
Cirrus 171 Mike Alpha, Grand Junction Tower, wind 110 at 5, taxi on runway 22, runway 29er, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared to enter 22, takeoff 29er 171 Mike Alpha. All right, so mixture, flaps, lights, trim, transponder, doors, windows, pump, and timer. All right, we're ready to go. So let's put in the power. And that's RPM, engine gauges, airspeed alive. Disregarding the yellow. 70 knots. Something weird is happening with the power here.
All right, I just want to pause here and say these power fluctuations that we're seeing on takeoff, these would be grounds for an instant takeoff abort. This is definitely something you should do in real life. I didn't abort the takeoff while I was recording the video because I didn't really want to start over, but this is going to be a do as I say, not as I do moment. If you see these kinds of power fluctuations on your takeoff roll, you should abort the takeoff and figure out what's wrong. I still don't actually know what's wrong. Maybe it's the turbo bootstrapping. I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows, don't continue the takeoff if you see power fluctuations like that.
All right, it's positive rate. All right, power stabilized. There's 5,000, flaps up. We'll reduce to 2,500. And we'll flip on the autopilot and yaw damper. And we'll activate navigation mode. GPS mode is active. We're looking good. Maintaining full rich, 2,500, and we're accelerating to our climb speed.
Cirrus 1 Mike Alpha, contact Denver departure.
Departure 1 Mike Alpha. Denver departure, Cirrus 171 Mike Alpha, 5,500 climbing via 14,000.
Number 171 Mike Alpha, Denver departure, radar contact.
1 Mike Alpha. Alright, that's 5,800 feet, so flaps, maps, and caps. Caps is now available if we need it. And at 6,000 feet, it should start that turn. There we go. Making that left turn direct to Grand Junction now. And we see our needles are aligning, so we're looking good. Let's get the heading bug synced. Let's do the climb checks now. Oxygen we don't need yet. Power lever set, mixtures full rich, airspeed we're not climbing a VY. Electric fuel pump is still low boost, fuel flow, and engine parameters. So CHTs are looking really good, so we can probably increase our climb to 120 knots. So let's do that and get our get some additional climb rate. There we go. That's looking much better. Once we're clear of obstacles, we'll do the cruise climb checks. Or sorry, clear of terrain. CHT is still climbing a bit, but well below 380, so 120 knots is looking like a great climb speed. Alright, as you can see, 120 knots, CHTs came up to 360, still well below 380 though, so this is looking like a great climb speed.
Rating tower of 6294, Mike holding short runway 16.
And we're still pulling about 1,000 feet per minute as we come through
Yeah,
10,000. So we're getting much better climb than we would Lena Peak.
Runway 16 clear for takeoff.
Coming through 10,000, let's take the landing light off and we'll turn on the oxygen.
Clear for takeoff, we'll report midfield for touch and go.
And we'll set the flow meter.
Number 904 Mike, make
So
left traffic.
this flow meter has two gauges, or sorry, two scales.
Left traffic,
The one on the
Mike.
left is if you have an oxygen conserving cannula. The one on the right is if you have a standard cannula. I mean, in real life, obviously you'd know which kind of cannula you bought, but in the sim, I have no idea. I've been using the left scale, the oxygen conserving scale, and I haven't had any issues with hypoxia, so I'm just going to use that. So we'll set this to 10,000 as we climb through 10,000 feet, and every few thousand feet we'll continue to increase the dilution as we climb. Anyway, at Grand Junction now we're making the left turn to Paces. Since we've done the Grand Junction thing now, we can turn off bearing 1. And since we're clear of terrain and it's basically home stretch for the climb, let's complete the cruise climb checklist. Oxygen's been set, power lever's been set, mixture's been set, and our airspeed, we don't need the 130 knot minimum airspeed, and fuel pump is still on. So we'll put away the checklist until cruise. And we're going to keep the full ridge climb just so that we can get up to 14,000. I mean, here you have the option of switching to a lean of peak climb if you wanted. I mean, there's definitely no terrain anymore that we have to clear, but since I planned with the extra fuel for a full ridge climb, I'm just going to keep the mixture full ridge and enjoy the additional climb rate. The one thing you have to be wary of when you're doing a lean of peak climb in IFR is IFR requires a minimum climb speed of 500 feet per minute. And you know, at hotter temperatures and higher altitudes, that 500 feet per minute may be impossible lean of peak. So you may have to switch to full ridge or advise ATC that you're unable 500 feet per minute. We're at 12,000 now, so let's continue to adjust the flow meter.
Contact Denver Center 120.47.
2047, 171 Mike Alpha. Denver Center 171 Mike Alpha, 12.7 climbing via 14,000.
Number 171 Mike Alpha, Denver Center, climb and maintain 15,000. And Aspen altimeter 3035.
Climb and maintain 15,000, 3035, 171 Mike Alpha. Alright, let's plug in 15,000.
Mike, runway 16 clear for the option.
And he said climb and maintain, but there's no other altitude restrictions, so I don't have to modify my flight plan at all. And let's set 3035 on the altimeter. to stand by. All right. CHT's still creeping up as we get into thinner air. It says pitot heat required because the OET is 5 degrees now, but we're not in visible moisture yet. We may be soon though, so we'll keep an eye on those clouds. Climbing through 14,000 now, time to adjust the flow meter again, so we'll move the ball up to 14. And this just adjusts the dilution of oxygen, so the higher you climb, the more oxygen you need to make up for less oxygen in the air, and so that adjusts the dilution, the amount of oxygen versus just outside air that goes to the cannula and into your nose. Cannulas are permitted up to 18,000. Masks you need up to 25,000, and the Cirrus is only approved up to 25,000 anyway. So you'd need a mask above 18. If you were using a mask, you'd use the right-hand scale. No idea how to equip a mask on this thing, or if you even can. So technically, you shouldn't be flying this thing above 18,000. However, I do have a pilot friend of mine that has taken a cannula up to 19,000 or so, just because it's, you know, sometimes really inconvenient and uncomfortable, and that friend of mine doesn't really like wearing a mask. All right, reaching our cruise altitude of 15,000. What we're going to do now is go mixture full rich, power full forward, and we're going to maintain this setting for 1 minute on the clock. So when it's 13 and 10, we'll go lean of peak, and since we're at 15 in our cruise altitude now, let's adjust the flow meter one last time to 15,000, and we're all set for the oxygen. Only thing left to do now is monitor the quantity. It's because we're using an oxygen conserving cannula, apparently this quantity is going to tick down pretty slowly. If you want to be extra realistic, by the way, don't refill your oxygen tank until you land at an FBO that has oxygen service, and you can see that in ForeFlight. Sometimes, you know, it can be you have to do your flight planning around making sure that you land at an airport with an FBO that does oxygen refills. All right, there's 10 seconds, so we're going to reduce until we get to 2,500 RPM at max available manifold pressure, which is 29.3. Then with one big smooth pull of the mixture, we're going to set about 16 or so gallons per hour, and then adjust that fuel flow as necessary for engine cooling. So let's optimistically, well, ISA is plus 16. It's a pretty warm day, so let's set it to 16 gallons per hour and see what that gives us. We may have to reduce the fuel flow a bit, but we'll watch the CHTs and see how they creep up. The important thing to note about the oxygen system is this switch here controls the valve and is electrically operated. So the valve needs electricity to open and close. However, it doesn't need electricity to stay open. That way, if you have an electrical failure, you can still get oxygen.
Let's try 1920.
But what that means is if you forget to turn off oxygen on your way back down, and then you you know, shut down the airplane and go away, the next day when you come back to the airplane, you're going to be pretty bummed to discover that all your oxygen has seeped out. So make sure that you remember to close the valve before you turn off the battery, otherwise that valve is going to stay open and you're going to lose all your oxygen.
Expect visual approach runway 16 left.
Anyway, CHTs are looking pretty good. I bet we can even do 16.5 gallons per hour, so let's creep it up a bit. And let's monitor the timer. So we've been 15 minutes, so it's time to switch tanks. Fuel pump is already on, so we'll switch to the right tank, check pressure. And then at the next switch, that'll be 30 minutes. We can turn off the boost pump. We leave the boost pump on for 30 minutes at cruise just to clear any vapor bubbles and prevent vapor lock. Let's run the cruise checklist now. So oxygen, pump, power, mixture, engine parameters, fuel flow, and balance. It's all done. Oh, let's make sure the descent checklist is ready. Okay. All right, let's start thinking about our arrival now. So it's not going to be long before we need to start going to Aspen. So let's get Aspen ATIS ready to 0.4. We'll stick that on COM 2.
Runway 16 clear, touch and go.
This fuel quantity alert is definitely an annoyance with Cirrus's. With my aircraft in real life, the fuel quantity alert comes on when there's I think almost 2 hours of gas remaining. So considering, you know, VFR reserves are 30 minutes, IFR are 45 minutes, and my personal minimums is 1 hour of reserve. That means when the fuel alert comes on, you still have a full hour of flying you can do before you have to land and still meet my personal minimums. So personally, I find it quite annoying, especially when passengers notice, you know, like the fuel quantity alert coming on. They think it's like a car, you know, where if that fuel light comes on, you only have, you know, a couple dozen miles to go before you run out. So I wish Cirrus would maybe reduce the amount of fuel required to trigger the quantity alarm, but oh well. All right, as you can see, we're coming up on some weather here. We're going to be penetrating some weather, and temperature is not below freezing, but it's close to freezing. Ice can form anywhere within about +5 to -20 degrees, and we're at 2 degrees, so we need to be worried about ice. So we'll get the pitot heat on now. Some people like to turn on the TKS early and just kind of get a coating along the wing. In real life, with the TKS on, you'd be able to slowly start to see little streaks of TKS fluids run back along the wings, and you'd be able to watch the wings kind of get coated with TKS fluid. It takes about a minute or two for them to get fully coated because that stuff flows very slowly. So yeah, some people like to turn on the TKS before they go in the clouds just to get kind of a good coating in case any ice shows up. Otherwise, in real life, you just monitor the wings when you flew into clouds, and if you started to see ice build up, you turn on the TKS and just monitor the ice accretion, use norm or high or max depending on what you needed to get rid of that ice. Here in X-Plane, at least for now, we can't see any ice on the wings, so we always have to assume the worst, which means whenever we're flying in icing conditions, visible moisture and temperature between 5 and -20, you should have the TKS on, at least in norm. Maybe one day in the future we'll actually be able to watch ice accrete on the wings, and then, you know, because just because you're in a cloud at like -5 degrees or whatever, it's not a guarantee that you'll pick up ice, and even if you do pick up ice, you may not get a whole lot of ice. So until that point when we can actually watch the wings and determine how much ice we pick up, if any, we just have to assume the worst, and whenever we're flying in clouds, pitot heat on and TKS on. So here we go, we're inside the cloud now. In real life, I'd just be kind of not staring at the wings. You don't want to, you know, it's common for new pilots who are a little scared of flying in ice to stare at the wings. Obviously, you want to keep your attention on the gauges first and foremost to make sure that the airplane is flying the way it's supposed to, and just occasionally give the wings a scan and see how much ice you're getting, if any. All right, well, we came out of the cloud now, and we didn't pick up any ice, so we turn off the pitot heat and TKS. All right, as you can see from the exterior view, we are flying through some rain. Now, it's above freezing, and this rain is not accreting to our wings. If it were accreting to our wings, we would know it's freezing rain, and we would have to make an immediate 180, because even a FIKE certified aircraft like this one, even a airliner, cannot handle freezing rain for more than a few minutes. But since it's not accreting on our wings, it's not freezing rain. This is just regular rain, which can exist near freezing. It can still just be regular rain, not accreting, so we don't have to worry about using anti-ice. So when you see rain like this, it's either freezing rain and you need to GTFO as fast as you can, or it's just regular rain and no need to worry. Now, in real life, whenever you're using oxygen, along with scanning the oxygen quantity indicators, you would also be wanting to scan your SPO2,
I'm running for Mike, runway 16,
surface perfusion of oxygen, to make sure you're not hypoxic. In order to do that, you would have a...
turn left heading 250, descend to maintain 8,000.
In order to do that, you would have a pulse oximeter, which you would clamp to your finger, and that would measure your SPO2. And if that were more than 10% below your resting SPO2, that would be kind of first stages of hypoxia, and you would probably need to increase the oxygen dilution. That was also necessary for masks. Masks, you need more oxygen dilution than cannulas. So if you were using a mask, or if you had a pulse oximeter that was showing a low SPO2, I would just increase the flow meter, you know, pretend like I'm flying at 18,000 feet or so, even though I'm actually flying at 15,000 feet, just to increase that oxygen dilution
1580, turn left heading 190.
and make sure that your brain's getting enough oxygen. Unfortunately, we don't have a pulse oximeter in the sim, so we can't actually look at our SpO2 levels. The only other thing we would do is look for the signs of hypoxia, which can vary from person to person. It's important to get familiar with your own hypoxic symptoms. For instance, my first symptom, I start to see sparkles in my vision. So whenever I'm flying and I start to see sparkles in my vision, I know it's time to increase that oxygen dilution.
And 1580 the airport.
And you know, your oxygen tolerance, your tolerance to hypoxia can change day to day. There are some days when I'm up at 15,000 feet and I barely need any oxygen. I'm doing just fine. There are other days when I'm at 9,000 feet and I already start to see sparkles. I feel lightheaded, and I have to turn on the oxygen even at 9,000 feet. So varies from day to day. Just pay attention to your body. Watch that pulse oximeter. Check your SpO2 regularly, every 15 minutes or so, and just, you know, adjust the flow, not just based on your altitude, but also what your personal needs are for your body and for the type of cannula or mask that you're wearing. The other important caveat about oxygen is you want to use it even at a lower altitude at night, even 5,000 feet. That's because oxygen will affect your night color vision. And so even as low as 5,000 feet, the oxygen levels at 5,000 feet are low enough that you can start to lose your night color vision, which is important at night. So I recommend, if you have oxygen, using it at 5,000 and above at night versus 10,000 above during the day. Looks like CHT is a little high.
Mike Alpha, contact Aspen Approach 123.
So again, the frequency for 1 Mike Alpha?
1 Mike Alpha, Aspen Approach 123.8.
23.8, 1 Mike Alpha. Okay, so yeah, CHTs are above 380, so I reduced the fuel flow to 15. They should start cooling back down. Let's go to Aspen Approach 123.8. Aspen Approach 171 Mike Alpha, 15,000. We're still working on the ATIS.
Number 171 Mike Alpha, Aspen Approach, roger, no problem. It's information, Romeo, just let me know when you have it and expect the localizer DME Echo Approach, Aspen altimeter 3035.
All right, spec localizer DME and 3035, 171 Mike Alpha. Okay, let's get that ATIS. CHTs are looking good, by the way. 15 gallons per hour has fixed the problem.
Aspen System at the airport. ATIS information Romeo. 1753 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 10. Light rain. View clouds at 3,000. Ceiling 7,500 Delton, 10,000 overcast. Temperature 18. Viewpoint 11. Altimeter 3035. Arriving runway 15. Departing runway 33. Localizer DME Echo Approach in use. Read back all runway assignments and hold short instructions. Advise on initial contact that you have information Romeo.
Okay, so it's information Romeo, so let's get ready for the localizer DME. And the
Alright, November Alpha
DME.
and hold short at 25, Southwest 1580.
And we're going to add it here as well. 171 Mike Alpha, we have Romeo.
Number 1 Mike Alpha, thanks.
Alright, we'll select the approach, localizer DME. Okay, so localizer Echo from red table VOR minimums, circling minimums only. We're category A, so that's going to be 9,840 feet.
Number 1 Mike Alpha, turn left heading 040 vectors, localizer DME Echo Bridge.
Left 040, 1 Mike Alpha. Alright, let's set heading 040 and set heading mode. And we are going to activate the approach now. And that should set nav 1 appropriately. Yes, and it's identified. So we are ready for the approach. So we've got ATIS, altimeter set, approach brief. So for the localizer, we're just going to intercept the 151 course. So let's set the CDI to the localizer 1. All right, course is set to 151. And so, yeah, we're just going to intercept it, and we're going to follow these step-down fixes all the way down to the final approach fix altitude of 11,700. Then we're going to go down to our circling minimums of 9,840. Should be more or less straight into runway 15. The reason it's a circling approach is because of the required descent rate, which does exceed straight-in minimums. But we should be more or less lined up for runway 15. Not expecting to encounter any weather on the approach. There was just a few layer that we're going to be proceeding through. Missed approach, if we need to, is a climbing right turn to 14,000 on heading 300, and then on the localizer back course for the other localizer, 108.5. So we'll set that on nav 2, the back course. So that's the back course we'll use for the missed approach, though of course we'll probably just fly it with GPS if we need to. And we're going to climb to 14,000 for the missed approach. Any notes? No notes apply. All right, that's approach brief and avionics, and that is the complete approach checklist. So we are ready for the approach. So let's close the flight plan window.
November 171 Mike Alpha is 11 miles from Dewey, turn right, heading 120, and descend and maintain 14,000 until established on localizer, cleared localizer, DME Echo approach.
Right 120 down to 14,000, maintain 14,000 until established, cleared localizer, DME Echo 171 Mike Alpha. Alright, right to 120, down to 14,000. Yeah, let's start slowing down too. So we're going to bring the power all the way back, and we're going to arm approach. So localizer's armed. And start working that power all the way back. Monitoring our CHTs. Don't want our CHTs to go below 240 in the descent. Picking up some turbulence. Let's do the descent checklist. Altimeter, cabin heat defrost, landing light on. Fuel system's already set. Mixture we're not going to touch. Brake pressure, quick check, and oxygen still on. We're just going to reduce to 14,000 now in the descent. And descent checklist is complete. All right, we're established on the localizer now. We can go down. First of all, I'm just going to disable the autopilot and flight director. We go down to 12,000. Set up bearing 1 so we have DME distance. Kicker, so we go down to 12.9 by 10.9 DME.
584 report at midfield.
Report at midfield, right down at midfield.
Let's go flaps 10.
Let's try this again. November 3558 uniform, Flagstaff Tower. Enter a left downwind, runway 21. Report midfield.
12.9 by 10.9 DME, and then we can go down to 12.3. Yeah, we're looking for 1885 for tower. All right, there's 10.9. We go down to 12.3 now. Sync the heading bug. And the GPS isn't activated the correct part of the approach, unfortunately, but that's okay. We're using the localizer. So we go down to 12.3 by 9.0 DME. So let's keep the speed where it is. Yeah, let's do our before landing checks. Gas, we'll go mixture rich, pump on, and switch tanks one last time. Undercarriage, mixture propeller, seat belts, switches, and system.
Number 1 Mike Alpha, contact tower 118.85.
1885, 1 Mike Alpha. One last cloud we're going through, so pitot heat, ice protection, or anti-ice on. Switch to tower. Aspen Tower 171 Mike Alpha, localizer DME Echo. And now we're through it.
Tower 171 Mike Alpha, Aspen Tower, straight runway 15, clear to land, wind call.
Clear to land 15, 171 Mike Alpha. We have the runway in sight, so I'm not going to worry about the approach anymore, the altitudes. I'm just going to start getting onto the PAPI. So let's line up and control our descent rate to get onto the PAPI. And at this point, we're coming below 10,000, so we can turn off the oxygen. So we'll reset the flow meter down to 10,000, and we'll turn off the oxygen. And that completes all of our descent items. All right, we're getting on the PAPIs. Let's go flaps 100 and slow to about 75 knots. 500 feet, stable. Alright, coming off the power, gentle flare, nice easy touchdown. Coming on the brakes, got plenty of turnoffs so I don't have to struggle to make one. Dope.
Cirrus 1 Mike Alpha left when you're able to taxi to the ramp via Alpha and you can stay on this frequency.
Alright, ramp via Alpha with you, 1 Mike Alpha. Alright, yeah, plenty of turnoffs. I don't have to pound on the brakes to make one. Just come off here on Alpha 3, and then we'll do our after landing stuff. Alright, so we can go flaps up now. Reeling the mixture back to the T. Turn off the landing light. And that's about all we need to do. Alright, come to a stop, 1000 RPM, avionics off, mixture idle,
November
pump
355
off,
from midfield, left downwind, 21.
and then alternator, strobes, batteries, mags, and keys. And then we'll replace the caps pin and cover. And we did indeed turn off the oxygen, and we're here. All right, so that concludes our flight from Grand Junction to Aspen. Hope you learned a little bit about the more advanced aspects of operating the SR22, including TKS anti-ice and oxygen. There are some areas for improvement for the aircraft. Obviously, it would be great to see ice accretion on the wing so we can make more informed decisions about whether to use TKS or not instead of just assuming the worst every time we go into a cloud. And in addition, it would be great to know more about what we're wearing on our face for oxygen. Are we wearing a cannula, an oxygen conserving cannula, a mask? If I'm flying above 25,000, can I switch to a mask? So it would be great to know more about that so that we can also make smart decisions when it comes to oxygen use. And of course, it would also be great to know what the hypoxia symptoms are, to lose color vision at night and all that stuff. But in general, if you want to operate the SR22 in a realistic way, this is more or less how to do it. I know the approach into Aspen could use a little improvement. I know I got slow at a couple points while I was paying attention to things other than airspeed, and I know that I wasn't paying as close attention to altitude and distance as I should have. I also could have set up the DME a little earlier in the approach. In general, the lessons there are get as much set up as early in the approach as you can, and airspeed is always your most important thing. So you should always be paying attention to airspeed. You should not be getting slow at any point. On the whole, though, I think while the approach could have been better, it was at least safe, and we did get visual in the airport pretty early, so that gave us an opportunity to stop paying such close attention to the fixes and the altitudes and just focus on the runway. So in general, I think while the approach could have been improved, it was a good starting point for a demonstration on how to do complex approaches in the SR22 using this XP1000 kind of G1000 simulator. Thank you very much for watching. I don't know if there's much else to cover about the SR22. Like I said in the first video, it's a pretty straightforward airplane. There's not a lot that you have to learn in order to fly it. But if there's anything that you guys would like to know more about, just let me know, and I'm happy to make some more videos or answer some questions about operating the SR22. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This is Tim Morgan, signing off.